Dawah training course, which we refer to as difficult questions. Actually, these are part of the general issues that were raised before, but these are more specific questions which are not so easily answered. And in general, we don't go into them that much in public because they raise a number of other issues and they're very sticky to get clarity on. Among them is the accusation, which is the popular recent accusation by Jerry Falwell, one of the televangelists in the US and others, who accused Prophet Muhammad ﷺ of being a pedophile or a pedophile. Pedophile being an adult who takes sexual gratification from children. Right? We know this is a problem currently in the world, where many tourists from Europe and America, they come on what they call sex tourism tours, where they come into India and Goa, to Sri Lanka, Bangkok, Thailand, to other countries, Philippines, etc., which are poor, where there's poor elements of the society, and they sexually abuse children. They go there, pay off their parents. Parents who are desperate, they give their children for some money or whatever, or the children themselves are involved in this. They're actively involved in it to gain money. So they exploit these children. This is pedophilia, right? Actually, the actual definition of pedophilia or pedophilia, according to the psychiatrist, is a person who is obsessed with children, who cannot get sexual gratification except through children. That is the actual definition of a pedophile. One who is obsessed with having sexual gratification with children. So now, if we take that definition and we apply it to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who married Aisha at the age of 9. She came to live with him at the age of 9. Married her at 7, she came to live with him at 9. We have to ask the question, is this the act of a pedophile? No. All of his other wives, he had adult wives, etc. 1. 2, he married Aisha. The pedophiles are not marrying anybody. They're just abusing and using and carrying on. They're not about marriage. There's nothing, sacred or honorable involved here. This is just people taking advantage of other people. So even according to the pedophile, definition of the pedophile, it cannot be applied to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Furthermore, we have to look at the context, the time. 1,400 years ago, this was not uncommon that an older man may marry a young woman. It was not uncommon. This is something you'll find throughout the world. So it is not something so weird and unique that it is to be raised up as a point of attack. Furthermore, what we have to consider is also the age at which marriage or even sexual relations is acceptable. If you look in Europe today, they allow sexual relations in the UK at 18. They say officially it is 18. Marriage 18. France 17. Holland 15. Germany 16. Italy 14. In Russia you have 12. So you have numbers which are varying, and these are just varying numbers. In Tennessee in the US, there is no lower number. I have an article of a 13-year-old girl marrying a 25-year-old young man. So, nobody's raising this as pedophilia. But the point is that even in Europe, what may be considered pedophilia in the UK is not considered pedophilia in Italy. What is in France is not in Germany, and so on and so forth. So the point is, we say to them, you are using numbers. These are artificial numbers. In Islam, we have a clear principle, distinction to determine when is marriage permissible, sexual relations in marriage, because that's the only way we accept it. When is it permissible? We have puberty. Puberty is something which will vary from person to person, from region to region, from country to country. But what is puberty? But nature, as created by Allah, stating that this woman is now capable of bearing child. Preparation of her womb to bear a child. That is nature saying that. So what better dividing line than puberty? And that's what Islam has taken. But they would still argue, but she was just a child. We say that is based on today's determination, because people are pampered, they mature later. In those days, people died at the age of 40. Go back 1,400 years ago, look what the average lifespan was. We're talking about the age of 40. So people naturally matured earlier in terms of knowing what to do in a family situation, looking after the home, sewing clothes, cooking food, going out digging the fields for the young men, fighting in battles. I mean, they were taking part at youth. Osama ibn Zayd was made the commander of the Muslim army when he was around 17 years old. Imagine putting a 17-year-old in the Pentagon with his finger over the button that will send, ballistic missiles on the world. That would be insane. 17-year-old, you couldn't trust him to do anything. Right? But in those days, 17-year-old, you're already a young man, considered responsible, and the Prophet ﷺ made him the leader of the Muslim armies. So we're dealing with a different rate at which people mature. So we argue then that this was not in any way pedophilia, and there was no abuse involved. When abuse is commonly involved, you find the people abused grow up with all kinds of mental problems, the psychological problems, etc. Aisha became one of the leading scholars amongst the Muslims, teaching the Sunnah, narrating the most number of hadiths, etc., etc. So that claim, that attack is in fact false. The other point, which what about the lighting? The lights. The other point which relates to females is the idea that males are allowed to beat their wives. This is a whole big issue. Muslim men allowed to beat their wives. And in fact, there was a big thing in France where one of the imams there, he explained, he'd done a booklet or whatever explaining that if a man beats his wife, he shouldn't break the skin, it shouldn't create welt. It's better to hit her on the bottoms of her feet using a miswak, and he went into all this. So as far as they were concerned, here is this imam creating a manual as to how to beat your wife. The society went berserk. They kicked the man out of the country and took away his citizenship, sent him back to Morocco. This was just about a year ago, right? Later, people intervened and they, raised the issue, and his citizenship was reinstated. But that was their reaction. Similar thing happened in Spain too, So we have to be clear on what we're talking about here. One, we have to understand that fundamentally, Islam, in allowing a woman to beat her husband, a man to beat his wife, this is only after a series of other steps. And this is in the case of divorce. This is specifically where it is mentioned. Right? Having separated from your wife after admonishing her, separating in the bed, in order to save the marriage as a last resort. And this is for a woman who is just not listening. She's just not responding. She has rejected everything that the man has said. That he catches a hold of her in order to catch her attention. Either with his hand he hits her, not hitting her meaning doubling up your fist and punching her in her eye or something like this. No, this is him tapping her on her arm. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said with a miswak, if you're going to use an instrument, a miswak, something small, not any of these big miswaks that people carry around, big logs. We see some of the brothers from Jamaat Tabligh carrying, right? Huge logs. No, we say this is a usual miswak, is a very thin thing, very smaller than even your pencil. So it means it's something only to catch attention. Not to inflict pain. This is not the intent. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said it should not break the skin, create a welt, not in the face, all these things, because these are sensitive parts of the body, etc. So it is only to catch attention. You're saying, wait, if you don't, toe the line, etc., our marriage is finished. They're just trying to catch attention. So it is not beat in the sense that the West may think, it is meaning you can take your belt and it's for anything. She spills some tea, so you're beating her. She burns your shirt, you're out there lashing her. No, this is not Islam. Islam does not permit this, as a last resort to save the marriage. Unfortunately, some Muslims, do abuse this, But a good point to mention to them is that even though in the West it is illegal for a man to hit his wife, illegal, the amount of women who are beaten by their wives is enormous. The other way around. Women beaten by their husbands is enormous. The most common form of homicide for women to be murdered, is by their husbands or close relatives. This is showing that in spite of the fact that the law is there, still spousal abuse, men beating their wives in so many different ways, is still common, widespread, happening all the time. So why is that the case? Yet in the Muslim community, it is not. It happens, but not anywhere near the scale that it happens in the West. Not anywhere near that scale. Why? We say to them. There is a reason for that. Because in Islam, the family is still intact. Among Muslims, the family structure is still intact. When two people marry, it's not just two individuals as it is in the West. So this guy marries this girl. If he starts beating up on her and she complains to her brother or to her father, he says, it's not my business. You married him. You take care of it yourself. Whereas in the Muslim family situation, your sister gets married, she comes to see you, she's got a black eye. You ask her, what happened? So my husband hit me. What are you going to say? Oh, too bad? No. You're going to call this guy up. You're going to go over to see him and say, hey, listen, this is my sister here. You hit her again, you're going to have to deal with me. Right? So there's interference. The father, the brother, the son, males are not going to stand by and see their close relatives beaten up into a pulp. They're not going to accept it. So people, in spite of the fact that Islamic law permits this, it is not applied as it is in the West. It is very rare. It happens. And in cases it may be abuse happening. It does happen too. But it is not the norm as it is in Western civilization. Of course, there are also issues concerning even the hitting of children, because in the West they have prohibited it now. You can't even hit your own children. In Canada, if you hit your child and the child informs her teacher or his teacher, the children's welfare will come in and take away your child from you. That's how serious it is. And as a result of the fact that parents can't hit their children, teachers can't hit their children, or hit the children at school, then it is a free-for-all. Children abuse their parents. Students come into school and shoot and stab their teachers. This is happening in the West.